This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore. At some point soon, we're going to have to stop calling people who refuse to get the vaccine hesitant. And we're going to have to start calling them what they are, which is an impediment to progress. These recalcitrant resistors to ushering in a new era of health in this country. Right now, all across the country, people are still hospitalized, sick, and dying from the coronavirus. And it is the percentage of people who are vaccinated who are getting ill and hospitalized and dying is almost non-existent. In LA County last week, in Los Angeles County, the most populated county, I believe, in the entire country, 11, 12, 13 million people live there. 0 people who were vaccinated were hospitalized with the coronavirus. And the reason I believe this is because the Republican Party for so long has fused religion and politics that now pundits, political pundits, talking head morons like me on the Republican side, the pundits are now the prophets. So these religious folks, they're not going to get the vaccine because it hasn't been endorsed by the all high and mighty Sean Hannity or Tucker Carlson or Laura Ingraham or any other number of idiots who have been, one, just discounting the impact of the pandemic since day one, calling it a hoax like Sean Hannity did, even though he now says he didn't ever call it a hoax. We're going to play that clip. But yesterday, Kay Ivey, who's the governor of Alabama, which right now has a pitiful vaccination rate, like a third of residents only are vaccinated in Alabama. And there is a sickening spike in infections, in hospitalizations, in deaths. You've heard the phrase, the pandemic of the unvaccinated. That is true. That is where we are. And I'm going to start today playing this clip from Kay Ivey, who's no prize. She's no gem. She's a terrible governor. She is one of the worst Republican governors. This is what she had to say when questioned about people being hesitant to take the vaccine.
What is it going to take to get people to get shots in arms?
I don't know. You tell me. Folks supposed to have common sense. But it's time to start blaming the unvaccinated folks, not the regular folks. It's the unvaccinated folks that are letting us down.
But as a leader of the state, don't you think it's your responsibility to try and help get this situation under control?
I've done all I know how to do. These folks are choosing a horrible lifestyle of self-inflicted pain. You know, we've got to get folks to take the shot.
So here's where we are in America. First of all, this is a new occurrence on the part of Republicans across the country who are now witnessing the mass slaughter of their constituency, the self-inflicted suicide, if you will. And it is because of that pundit/prophet problem, to get all alliterative about it, it's because of that we find ourselves in the situation we do, where the spike, if you just Google NYT, New York Times COVID stats, and look at the daily and the weekly averages, it is scary that we are now climbing back up. And I think now finally, when only really one side is catching the brunt of the impact of the pandemic, now they're realizing, oh shit, no good. We need to do something because as tight as elections are right now, we're not doing ourselves any favors by watching a sizable number of our electorate and our supporters die. Here's one such moron, and look, I really try to steer away from name calling on private citizens, but when you're a dumbass, you're a dumbass. And I'm going to play this clip from CBS this morning of a gentleman who just got out of being hospitalized. He was intubated with COVID, who in his hospital bed on the day he's getting ready to be discharged, he's telling the reporter, I'm not going to get the vaccine because it's all part of their agenda. Their agenda to have me not die, and I don't want anything to do with that. Well, watch this.
Here I am, recovering, getting out of here finally tomorrow. Am I going to get a vaccine? No.
Why not?
Because there's too many issues with these vaccines.
This father, former baseball coach, small business owner, and hunter, caught COVID, and then he developed pneumonia.
Before you got sick, if you would have had a chance to get the vaccine and prevent this, would you have taken the vaccine?
Nope.
So you'd have gone through this?
I'd have gone through this, yes, sir. Don't shove it down my throat. That's what's local, state, federal administration is trying to do, is shove it down your throat.
What are they shoving, the science?
No, they're shoving the fact that that's their agenda. The agenda is to get you vaccinated.
They're shoving it down my throat. Their agenda. Their agenda to see that you don't die of a preventable disease. This right there is the clear ramifications of prophets and pundits, and those two things being the same in the eyes of Republicans. This is a danger of intermingling politics and religion. It just is. Because this guy is a God-fearing gentleman who likely has other vaccines that were developed 70 years ago. He'll trust those vaccines, but not the vaccines that were developed in modernity, when we have a far greater stranglehold on science and epidemiology and vaccine manufacturing and development. He'll get a measles vaccine, but not the coronavirus, even though he almost died in the hospital. This is the fault of Republicans. This is the fault of the pundit class. Because these people trust their word over scientists, over men and women who have dedicated their lives to healing people. He's going to take Tucker Carlson's word or Sean Hannity's word over their word. That is twisted. That is sick. That is dangerous. And Republicans know it. They know it too. They know that they have a very low information voter base that will run with whatever lie, with whatever conspiracy they feed them. Here's Sean Hannity. March of last year was calling it a hoax, and then days later, when things started peaking, it's like, oh, well, we've never called it a hoax. Watch this.
In all seriousness, I think we've got to be very real with the American people. I don't like how we are scaring people unnecessarily. And that is that unless you have an immune system that's compromised, and you are older, and you have other underlying health issues, you are not going to die 99% from this virus, correct?
That's correct, John, and it's good to be with you again.
All right, so that's the point. I mean, they're scaring the living hell out of people, and I see it again as like, oh, let's bludgeon Trump with this new hoax.
Yeah, and I think what we're looking
kind of laugh at it, but nothing to laugh at here. By the way, this program has always taken the coronavirus seriously, and we've never called the virus a hoax. We call what they're doing, trying to bludgeon the president out. They're politicizing of this virus. Well, predictable, despicable, repulsive, all of the above.
I'll tell you what's despicable and repulsive, Sean Hannity, and that is you leading the lambs to the slaughter, downplaying the severity of this pandemic that has killed well over 500,000 Americans in the span of a year, and you playing politics with people's lives, people who admire you, who look up to you, who take your word, maybe not even facetiously said, as gospel. You are a reprehensible, sinister jackass, Sean Hannity. Here he is just last week when something happened in the Republican media sphere of then people realizing, oh shit, People are going to die. We better get some. Our people are going to die, I should say. We better get the information out there for encouraging people to get vaccinated. Here he is, and then we're going to play a clip of him dramatically walking it back after he got some backlash from it. Watch this.
Just like we've been saying, please take COVID seriously. I can't say it enough. Enough people have died. We don't need any more death. Research like crazy. Talk to your doctor, your doctors, medical professionals you trust based on your unique medical history, your current medical condition, and you and your doctor make a very important decision for your own safety. Take it seriously. You also have a right to medical privacy. Doctor-patient confidentiality is also important, and it absolutely makes sense for many Americans to get vaccinated. I believe in science. I believe in the science of vaccination.
And then for some reason, who knows the reason, he talks about confidentiality, like HIPAA rights, like the idiot Marjorie Taylor Greene did. Misunderstanding what it is. I did a video about it, if you've already seen it. And then here he is just maybe the next day. I'm not sure of the timeline because I don't watch his show. But very shortly, a day or two later, after people started reporting on him, saying that he was encouraging people to get the vaccine, and they were perplexed by this. And here he is walking it back. I'm not going to play the full clip because it's a couple minutes long, but it is remarkable that now he's getting flack from the mob. And he's, well, that's not what I said. I said, talk to your doctor. Watch this.
Reports are all false for multiple reasons. First, I touted Operation Warp Speed since the beginning. In January of 2020, I was predicting that I had so much faith in American researchers, the medical community, scientists, and as usual, it was my prediction that it will likely be American ingenuity and genius that will help us find therapeutics and vaccines and answers. And I praise the efforts of all of these scientists and medical professionals, those involved in developing therapeutics, the 3 vaccines that are now on the market, and literally dozens of others. In terms of therapeutics. But I never told anyone to get a vaccine. I've been very clear. I am simply not qualified. I am not a medical doctor. I know nothing about your medical history or your current medical condition.
And the other thing he said was that it's a hoax manufactured to hurt Trump. He also said that. Let's not forget that. So, listen, for anyone... And look, Sean Hannity's not the smartest knife in the drawer, but for someone to say, I'm not a medical expert. I can't give you medical advice. But you would recommend someone wear a seatbelt, and you're not an auto designer. You're not an automobile expert, but you would say, yeah, it's self-evident that wearing a seatbelt saves lives. So you don't have to be a doctor, Sean Hannity. No one thinks you're a doctor, Sean Hannity. You don't have to be a doctor to recommend someone get a life-saving vaccine. That is nonsense. That is stupid. No one's claiming, oh, I only listen to doctors when they suggest common sense things. But here's where we are with this, is that Republicans, there's this move now, and this is the reason he mentioned confidentiality, is that, like Tucker Carlson was asked by a Time magazine reporter in an interview about whether he's vaccinated, and he said, that's a personal question. I don't ask you about what sexual positions you have sex with your spouse in. Like it's the same thing. And that's what's happened right now. About half of the Republican conference in Congress has refused to say whether or not they're vaccinated. Some of them say, look, I'm not a role model. I'm not an example to my constituents. I don't have to say. That's bullshit is what that is. And the other day, wow. The other day, Ronnie Jackson, Donald Trump's former physician, the drunken, pill-pushing Ronnie Jackson, the guy who was handing out opioids and Ambien on flights during the Trump administration, was an abusive drunk, many people have said, while on the job. He's now a congressman because that's what That's what qualifies for a qualified Republican these days, Ronnie Jackson. And he was lamenting that the press was asking how many Republicans are vaccinated. He had this to say.
I was just going to chime in and say, I think that you as a press have a responsibility to ask questions of the Democrats as well. How many of the Democrats are willing to say whether or not they've been vaccinated?
The answer is 100%, Ronnie Jackson. The answer is 100%. Back in May, CNN reported, all the way back in May, that 100% of Democrats in Congress had gotten the vaccine. And they would proudly proclaim it because they want to set a good example. They want to communicate to America that it is safe and it is effective. And you, a doctor, maybe I need air quotes for it, are a disgrace for fomenting doubt in the minds of Americans, for doing a shell game, 3-card Monty with the American people about what to be concerned about. Disgusting. Anyway, I would love to know what you think. I know I rambled a little bit longer than I normally do here today, but this is important. If you're not vaccinated, go get vaccinated. Do not be part of the problem. Obviously, if you have an underlying condition that actual medical professionals say, maybe it's time to back off and not get one because you're especially immunocompromised, then don't do that. But if you're of average health and if you've got a normal situation going on, go get vaccinated. This is an experimental treatment. We've had vaccines for decades and decades and decades. They work. They're effective. It's the reason we don't have polio around anymore. Do this for your neighbor. You might not get sick. You might be young. But you could also get the virus, be asymptomatic, and pass it on to someone who can't get vaccinated. You might get it. The vaccine mutates and we have a new variant. That's the problem right now. Anyway, I said I was going to end and now I'm rambling again. I love you guys. I appreciate you. I'd love to hear from you. You can leave me a brief voicemail, 714-576-4054. Email me daily at dollemore.com. I love and appreciate every single one of you. Thanks for spending time with me on Casual Friday. Follow me on social media. I'd love to connect with you there. And I would ask you to consider supporting my work here on Patreon, on the channel. I'm going through a script here in my head. You can become a channel member here on YouTube, or you can go to patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast. That is a great way to help support my work. If you're on a fixed income, if you have to budget it in, don't do it. I am my content will always be free. My podcast, even, everything's free. But if you'd like to help produce and support my work and you don't have to stretch to make it work, please consider supporting my work. I love you guys. I appreciate you. I'll see you next time. Until then, be genuine and take care of one another. Go get vaccinated.